Joining me today on another episode of the Gray Area Podcast. Make sure you follow and subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts and wherever you get your podcasts for free. And, of course, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Kevin Gray Sports. I have senior NFL reporter for Yahoo Sports, former Kansas City Star alum, proud graduate of Howard University, Terez Paylor, joining me on the program today. Terez, appreciate the time. How are we doing today?
I'm great, man. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
I appreciate you taking the time. Him and Charles Robinson's podcast just surpassed 1,000 reviews. So you want to check out the Yahoo Sports NFL podcast with Charles Robinson and Terez Paylor, wherever you get your podcast for free. Also, here to talk a little NFL and the Cowboys. The Cowboys take on the Minnesota Vikings this week at 2-7. Are the Cowboys? The Vikings have won their last three at 4-5. From afar, and as you have continued to cover this league, what have you made of the Cowboys season with all of the things with respect to the adversity, their injuries, and the poor play on the football field, especially on the defensive side of the football?
Well, it's unfortunate, right? I picked the Cowboys to win that division. Not feeling great about that now. I think if Dak Prescott had been healthy, they would have won the division, even with all their issues defensively or whatever. But that's where we are right now, right? Like the team is struggling. It's been the year from hell for them, right? Everybody's been hurt. Every defense knows that Zeke Elliott is their best offensive player. He's going to get the football, and then they can't protect. So, sometimes you have seasons like this where it's just a year from hell. I don't think this is the end of the world for the Cowboys. And unless they get like the number 1 or number 2 pick, which I don't see happening because I still think they're too talented to do that, I don't think that there's a scenario where you should even be entertaining, moving up for another quarterback or anything. I think Dak Prescott is a great quarterback, and I will hold up. But I would think about it if I get the number 2 pick. You got to at least talk about it because you can potentially save a lot of money. But outside of that, the only reason I bring that up, Kevin, because what I would do is kind of just run it back next year. You improve defense, whatever that looks like, okay? Okay, if that means that you need to make a change here or there on the staff with the personnel, you do that. But I think there's a scenario where you can reinforce your offensive line, make it better, make some defensive changes that are necessary, bring Dak back, and win double-digit games next year because this division is not getting any better. I don't see answers in Philly and those other teams, aside maybe from the Giants, who I actually kind of like.
Okay.
I think those other teams are way off, man. Like, they're building something in New York that's okay.
Okay. Well, as far as this coaching staff, because you kind of alluded to it, Mike McCarthy, the head coach, Mike Nolan, the defensive coordinator, do you think these hires were the correct ones given where this franchise was and how they are projecting themselves to be moving forward as a team?
Well, this isn't hindsight for me because I didn't like the McCarthy hire in the first place, right? I know he's won a Super Bowl. There's a lot to be said for that. And there's a scenario where it could work. I did like that they had some continuity, right? But at the end of the day, he's also going to be responsible for his hires on the defensive staff. And I'm just saying, okay, well, I bet Chris Richard's looking pretty good right now. But no, I think he's got to be held responsible for that. And it certainly wasn't a super inspiring hire, right? And I know some Cowboy fans agreed with that. And also, I know some Cowboy fans were worried about the hire. And I know they're just like, dang, we saw it. Why couldn't they see it? But, there's still a scenario. Again, they're so talented. When they have everybody, there's still a scenario where they can retool some things this offseason and be okay.
Of course, the Cowboys at 2-7, giving up the most points in all the National Football League. Mike Nolan been under fire around here a lot because of how poorly his defense have played. And one player that's gotten seemingly the brunt of that, whether unfairly or not, has been number 54 in Jaylon Smith. One, do you think he gets too much criticism? And do you see a scenario where the Cowboys could say, you know what, it's time to part ways and try and do something else at the linebacker position there? Well,
I think the thing that's interesting about Jaylon is that when you get paid the money he's been paid, like the blame is going to come to you. I try to take notes on every game, right? So I'll just say like in week 1 and 2, like I was noticing there's some jogging to the ball here that I kind of, but I'll also be honest, and I think it's important for fans to realize this. You don't know what a player is kind of dealing with health-wise, right? And like sometimes like that guy who's jogging is like giving a heroic effort and you don't know. So, like, that was the first thing I thought. I'm like, what's going on here with him? This really isn't who he is. That said, if you're going to pay a linebacker, an off-ball linebacker, a lot of money, he kind of needs to deliver in every phase. And I think he'd admit, he hasn't really delivered in every phase as an off-ball linebacker. There's individual improvement that needs to come there with him. Certainly he can be a better football player. As far as, replacing him or like making a change there, the cap hit would have been $9.4 million this year. Next year they would save $400,000, but there'd be $9.4 million in dead money unless they did the post June 1st cut, which I guess you could do. But no matter, and if you did that, you could save $7.2 million. So that maybe that's something you would consider. Yeah. But he's also just 20. He'll be 26 next year. You still need a replacement for him. So there's a scenario where you play it back, where you run it back and say, okay, maybe we can customize what we do to what this guy does well somehow. Like maybe there's a way you can make that work. I would seriously entertain that, because at 25, 26 years old, his best football is going to come from 26 to 28. And I wouldn't want to be the guy that had to deal with the growing pains of this year and some past ones, and then he just goes off somewhere. And now he's in his physical and mental prime. I would make sure before I moved on from him that we maximize everything that guy does. And I think you can say, based on the way the entire defense has played, that they have not maximized the things he does well, which is as a run and chase linebacker. That's how I'd use him. But hey.
Don't trust me. A lot of folks down here in Dallas feel like put Jaylon Smith in a situation where he's getting downhill and getting after the quarterback and not having to do too much of this other stuff, trying to diagnose things and make plays off of that.
Let him run and chase.
Yep. Yeah. So we'll see how that unfolds with Jaylon Smith. Turning our attention to the offensive side of the football, of course, as you know, one of the biggest storylines in Dallas is at the quarterback position, not just with the poor play that we've seen since Dak Prescott went down, but the entirety of how his situation has been handled. How have you felt about how the Dallas Cowboys have handled his situation, especially, of course, with him going down this season with his ankle injury?
Well, I mean, I like the fact that, at least publicly, they've been saying the right things in a lot of areas, like, hey, we want him back. Hey, he's important because – but we also know that even if they decided to go another way, he'd find a job very quickly and he'd make a lot of money because guys like him are not that common. I'm actually a big fan of Dak Prescott as a player. He was my preseason MVP. Like I thought, contract year. Turns out the only thing that gets in the way of that can be a season-ending injury. So right. I think we're seeing how important he is. Like we are seeing that the offense doesn't really work without him. Again, if you decided to move on from Dak Prescott because somehow you ended up with the number 2 pick, and I do love Justin Fields. Like I think Fields is a stud. And 5 years cost control for a 21-year-old quarterback is pretty doggone tempting. Even then I would think, I don't know, you still have a guy who's like, what is Dak, 26? So like, the problem is Jerry's not getting younger and he really wants another Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Kind of hard to see a scenario where Fields can immediately, like they're not going to win a Super Bowl his rookie year. That doesn't happen in this league. Right. Quarterbacks don't win Super Bowls. The best ones give you a shot in year 2. But even then, it typically tops out around the championship game. So now you're asking Jerry to be patient for 3 more years when conceivably you got Dak Prescott in his prime. There is the Jerry clock. Maybe if they were in another situation, but it's the Jerry clock. They're trying to win now, and they'd be best served just trying to fix their issues this offseason, maybe drafting a tackle. The Sewell kid from Oregon is going to be a really good football player and kind of get back to what they do. So I know that's a long-winded answer, but I think the Cowboys are fascinating. I have no shortage of thoughts on what's going on.
Well, of course, Jerry Jones is 78 years of age now, so time is of the essence for him to try and get yet another Super Bowl championship. And sticking offensively, too, Ezekiel Elliott averaging 3.8 yards per carry, a guy who's a career low at that position. Do you still think he's an effective player in this league, or is he more of a function of what his offensive line is or isn't, given how much they are healthy or not?
I think I still believe in Zeke as a football player. I think he's a really good football player. But like any running back who's not like Barry Sanders, and there are no Barrys, right?
Right.
You need blocking. Like this is – I'm serious. Go to YouTube and watch a highlight any Barry Sanders game, you'll see him like he's doing this without blocking. Zeke doesn't do that, but there's no running backs that really do that. He needs blocking, but he's an effective running back anyway. He can catch, he can block, he's tough. Just defense know he's getting the ball. So they're not worried about the pass like at all, which is, sad. It's tough, right? But no, I wouldn't be out of the door on him. I think he's just 25 right now? So,
he'll be 25,
There's still a scenario, man, where, they've got, all these guys, their key guys, man, are all like entering their primes. Dak is 27, right? So he'll be 28 next year, prime. Zeke Elliott will be 26 next year, prime. Amari Cooper, 27 next year, prime. Michael Gallup, 25 next year, prime. You get it? These are guys you probably want to just bet on. Bring back these linemen. You want Zach Martin there. You want to try Tyron Smith back. But reinforce this line in case these guys get injured again, and they'll be okay. I really feel like the Cowboys are going to be a great bounce-back candidate in 2021 as long as they fix the defense and refortify the offensive line. Because I'm a big fan of CeeDee Lamb as a football player and what he can do in this offense. I think this offense has a chance to be really good next year with their whole pieces and some fortification.
Last question before we let you go. So tell Cowboys Nation, Terez, how would you think that the Cowboys should approach the rest of these 7 games, starting with Minnesota on Sunday, as they go forward potentially into 2021 with the high draft pick? What message would you have to the Cowboys fans about that?
Probably going to be a long year. Probably going to win 3 or 4 games. That's okay. It happens. If I were the Cowboys, I wouldn't be playing guys that are borderline. Like if you're injured, like you sit, but you try to win every game. That builds good football character. That's important. You got to try to win every game. So there's no tanking, none of that. You try. But what you do is you don't let guys that are key to the future play with knick-knack injuries. Well, maybe knick-knack injuries are okay, but you don't let them play with stuff that could potentially get worse.
Sure.
Right. And that's how you do that. That's a way of tanking, but not really. Because you're going to want a top 5 pick in this draft.
Yeah.
You can get the tackle because the first 2 guys are going to be the quarterbacks. That's fine. But you get the number 3 pick, you can get the Oregon tackle who's a stud and can play anywhere along the line, basically except center, I think. So, I think they can find a place for him, whether it's right tackle or whatever. They can find a place for this guy, right?
Yeah.
Or guard or whatever, or tackle, left tackle, who knows? I'd be definitely trying to just approach it that way. Look, and I'll tell you this one more thing. I've been around this league 8 years now. The guys you want on your team are the guys you still see playing really hard right now. This is a good chance to evaluate. And I know Cowboy fans are really smart. So that's what I'm saying. I know you guys are going to hate watch this team. But watch the guys that are still playing their tails off right now. Those are the guys the staff will be paying attention to. You see some guys kind of lackadaisical, no fire, they'll be out of here. The guys that really love football are the guys that play hard no matter what because they love the game. That's what you need to look forward to here. That's what you need to look at because that's what the staff will be looking at.
One of those guys who clearly sets that example we think down here quite a bit is DeMarcus Lawrence.
He's one of those. Say that.
Yeah.
Dude, earlier this year, I actually took a note because, I take notes on every guy. I took a note. I'm like, 90 is bringing it. I don't know who else is. I was like, yo, this guy's playing really, really hard. He was the one that has consistently popped in me. Yeah. Yeah, he's playing. He played. I appreciate that guy's effort. I do.
Yeah. One of the few that it feels like perception-wise is continuing to do that despite the circumstances. You can find him on Twitter at Terez Paylor. He is a senior NFL reporter for Yahoo Sports. Catch him alongside Charles Robinson with the Yahoo Sports NFL podcast. Just surpassed 1,000 reviews. They've got their fan mailbag episode that they just did. And he's a Gates fan of Gates Barbecue, just like me in Kansas City. So, Terez, thank you so much for the time. I sincerely appreciate it. And hopefully we get to do this again soon, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. And anytime you want me on, just holler at me, man.
Appreciate it.